Sup people, it's your boy Sly. In this video, I'm going to talk about the economic difference between Vancouver, BC, and Seattle, Washington. In Seattle, Washington, we all know the cost of living is kind of high. Because over here in Seattle, we have Microsoft and we have Amazon. Two of the richest companies in the world are in the Seattle area. Okay? And you all know when there's Amazon and Microsoft, you have these other tech companies too. We have a lot of tech companies right now. It's insane. We have a lot of them. So even though these companies are doing great things, it increases the quality of life, or increases the quality of life. It increases the rent. It increases sometimes local taxes. You know, I mean, there are some pros and cons behind it. But overall, living in Seattle is nice if you can afford it. Seattle today has become so expensive to the point where the only way you will live comfortably is if you have a job working in healthcare or a job in the tech world. Right now, Amazon and Google, I think we have a Google branch in Seattle area, and we also have a Facebook branch in Seattle area where they need engineers. And you can get a decent job or a decent salary making about 70 grand a year or 80 grand a year just starting out, because you do a lot of work for Google or Amazon or Facebook, whatever. So you do a lot of work, so they pay you a lot of money. So what's happening is that the cost of living in these neighborhoods have gone up. There is even a radio commercial telling people, if you want to sell your house, this is the best time to do it, because a lot of these tech people need homes. So that shows you what's going on. Like, there's some places I drive around. You see all these new homes being built. Okay, that shows you how the quality of life is out here. Things are just increasing. Things are developing quick. If you don't keep up, you'll be left behind or you'll be pushed out. Because if you can't afford the rent, you go to where you can afford it. You know? So that's one thing you have to understand. So even when I went to Vancouver, they were doing housing projects, developing new stuff, you know, in Vancouver and the neighboring cities. It's the same thing. Vancouver is expensive because many people want to live there. Okay? Many people want to live in Vancouver. And these Asian people, they're buying up property over there at high numbers. It's not a bad thing per se, but a lot of people have their issues with it. You know? But I'm not gonna go into it in this video, because that's not the point of the video. So Vancouver is a hot spot right now. So you have to understand, like, you have to have economic stability or financial stability to stay in Vancouver or Seattle. You must have a good paying job. 15 bucks an hour ain't gonna cut it. Because in the city of Seattle, they passed the law for 15 bucks an hour if you work in the city of Seattle. On the outskirts of Seattle, I don't think it applies. So, but even $50 an hour can't do shit for you. It can't. And rent is getting so expensive nowadays. People are forced to have roommates just to save money. So how would you feel? You're 30 years old or you're 40 years old and you're forced to have roommates. How would you feel? You know, but that's what happens because of the economic situation. Some people can't keep up with the demand of the businesses. You know, landlords say, "Hey, we need $1,200 a month." You say, "Hey, I can't afford that." They don't sit there and say, "How can we help you?" It's more like, "Okay, your lease ends on June 30th. You have to go." That's how it's going nowadays, you know? But I want to go into the economics behind it because Vancouver is a very beautiful city. I mean, I'm telling you guys, I love Vancouver. It's beautiful. You know? When I drove on, those sceneries were so nice, man. I wish I had my camera. I mean, my car camera. Record that shit. So, you know, it's just one of those things. But overall, it's one of those things you have to keep in mind because I know a lot of people have said, "Oh, I wish I lived in Vancouver than Seattle," or vice versa. Some people want to move to Vancouver. But you have to understand about Canada compared to the U.S. Rent may be cheaper in Canada on average. On average, rent is cheaper in Canada than the U.S. There's a fact. On average, it's cheaper, right? But the issue you're gonna face is that you will spend more money when it comes to groceries and local products compared to the US. So it basically balances itself out. So in the US, you pay more when it comes to rent. You pay more money when it comes to rent. But when it comes to like local grocery items, you'll pay less compared to Canada. But in Canada, you have cheaper rent, but you pay more money for goods such as groceries and local products. Let me tell you what I saw when I went to Vancouver. I entered into this store and they were selling Irish Spring soap. They were selling 6 bars of Irish Spring soap for $7.99 Canadian dollars, which converts to $6.26 US. So you hear what I said? That's $6.26. $6.26 American dollars. But in Seattle, you can find 8 bars of soap, of Irish Spring soap, for $3.99. Do you not see there's a big difference right there by around like $2 difference? And that's just for one item. Imagine you spending $200 on items in the US, groceries. You could end up spending around $300 in Canada. The prices are different. Why the prices are different, sometimes it can be based on tariffs. Sometimes. But sometimes it can just be based on the manufacturer or the company itself. They can just say, we want to charge this price in Canada. And they can do that because it's a It's a free market. They can do that. It's just like in the United States. It's just like in the US. If you go to one store, you can find an item, for example, let's just say, for example, you can literally go to a Walmart. Let's just say you go to a Walmart in Seattle and they're selling a laptop for $700, right? You can probably go to like a Walmart in Idaho and they'll sell it for $600. They can do that because it's a free market, you know. So that's what happens with these companies sometimes. Also, if you guys don't know this, they have in Canada they have a CBC special where they compared the Walmart in Toronto to the one that's in Bellingham. Okay, if you guys don't know where Bellingham is a city which is about 30 minutes away from the Canadian border in Washington. One of the big cities in the state. So they did a little comparison behind it, you know. So that shows you you're paying more money. And even when it comes to cars, like a car in the United States is literally 5 to 20% cheaper than in Canada. Literally cheaper. This and the stuff I'm telling you right now is based on a documentary, a news documentary that was done in Canada. They did it. They did a little price comparison. That they even have a law that if you are Canadian, you cannot buy a car in the US. I don't know if they changed the law by now. They may have changed it now. But when the documentary came out, they had that law. So I don't know if it's an official law. It could be from the dealership. I don't really know. I can't remember exactly. But you are paying, if you buy a car in Canada, you're literally paying more money for it than in the US. So you think you're getting a fair deal, but you're really not, because in Canada, you're actually paying more money for local products. Well, not local products, but products in general. You're paying more money compared to the US, which is quite interesting. You see what I mean? So it's quite disappointing because in Canada, they do pay you better in terms of salary and money for the same job in the US. They actually pay you better. It's worth the money. But you're actually getting jacked when you go to the grocery stores to buy local items compared to the US, you know? But, you know, a lot of people don't think about this type of stuff. So, I mean, it doesn't really apply to them, nor does it hurt their pockets. At least to their knowledge, it doesn't hurt their pockets. But it's one of those things you really got to look into, because if you're going to move to Canada from the US, you better have a good reason why you're moving. Okay? If it's for saving money, you are sadly mistaken. Okay? You are sadly mistaken if you think moving to Canada is going to be cheaper for you. It's going to be more expensive at the end of the day. So you have to understand what you want. You know? So I was sadly mistaken about moving to Canada. I want to move to Canada so bad. I want to move to Canada. yeah, I'm gonna move to Canada in a couple of years. I didn't want to move this year, but things didn't go accordingly. Or that last year I wanted to move, things didn't go accordingly. So I'm pretty much stuck in Seattle for a little bit. But overall, man, after doing my research between Seattle and Vancouver, it's pretty much the same thing. The only difference, to be very sincere, between Vancouver and Seattle, is that in Seattle, you can have a better quality of life than in Vancouver. If you really think about it, I think Seattle, you have a better quality of life because you can make more money. You can make more money living in Seattle, but at the exact same time, what are you going to do with the money? Is what really matters. If you're making extra money in Seattle, what are you doing with it? Are you investing it? Are you traveling? You know, are you going on vacations? Like, what are you doing with the extra money? So that's one thing you have to look into if you want to stay in the U.S. Because in the United States today, it's all about money. Some people here, it's all about the dollar. It's all about these other bills. In Vancouver, you know, I'm only discussing the economics in this video. The culture is that'll be a whole nother video. That's not in this one. So when it comes to finances, you got to figure out what works for you. If you're going to move to Vancouver, why are you moving to Vancouver? And can you make a decent living there? That's what you have to analyze. You know? So that's something to look into if you guys want to move. Because myself, I don't know where I want to live anymore. I'm trying to figure out I want to move here, I want to move there. So I don't really know. But after living in Seattle for how many years of my life, it's like I have to evaluate where I want to go. But now looking at Canada now, I'm like, I don't want to move to Canada no more. It's the same shit as Seattle. If I moved, to be very sincere with y'all, if I moved from Seattle to Vancouver, I will still be doing the exact same thing I'm doing now. Nothing. I don't do anything. I really don't. What I do literally is drive around the city. So that's all I do. Maybe go up to the movies. Oh, that's all I do. I don't do shit. Because like I told you guys before, most of my friends have moved to a different city. So I don't really hang out with them anymore. So if I move today to Vancouver, it's gonna be the exact same shit. I'm gonna be in my apartment most of the time, watching TV by myself. So it's like, if I move to another country, I want to move to a country where the people are nice, they're friendly, and I can do shit with them. You know? Living in the Western world, it's all about money. If you don't have money, people are not going to mess with you out here. And that's what makes it worse. That's what makes everything worse, because if you don't have money, you can't get a girlfriend. Because romance without finance leads to annoyance. You know? So that's one of those things you have to look into. If you want to move to Vancouver, I think it's a good place to move to be very honest. But you got to figure out why you're going there. You know? If it's in terms of money, stay in Seattle and it balances. It's the same shit. In Seattle, like I said before, you may have a higher salary. But when it comes to like paying your rent rent is high, but the groceries are kind of a little bit cheaper compared to Canada. But in Canada, rent may be cheaper, but you're paying more money when it comes to groceries. So, are you really making more money by moving to Canada? You're probably not. So you have to figure out what works for you, you know? I may do a part 2 later to this, but let me know what you think. Peace.